Good morning, race fans. Of course, it could be good evening or good afternoon. This is, after all, the CVR World Cup, and we have riders today from all around the globe. And so, looks like we've got a pretty full pen this morning, and we are looking forward to a fun race on going to the Sun Road Smashed. Smashed just means that we've taken the 20% gradients that you would actually find in Glacier National Monument on the ride, and we smashed them down to 5%. To give the riders a little bit less of a climb today, and the ability to really show their stuff. One of the differences of Cadesport is that we have Together Tech. Together Tech is a number of technologies, but mostly centered around physical equalization, or what we call pro power, where we normalize everyone's power, or we equalize everyone's power to that of a pro. You still have, if you're a sprinter, you're still a sprinter. If you're a climber, you're still a climber. We maintain your quote-unquote phenotype for those nerdly people out there that like those big words. But what it means is whatever characteristics you have as a rider, you maintain in the events. Now, the other big difference with Cadesport is cornering. So rather than just sort of raw power and you race through the corners like you do on some other platforms, here you have to brake, you have to pedal correctly, you have to know when to accelerate out of the corner appropriately, or you will crash. And crashing makes a huge difference to how the game is played and who's going to finish first. So definitely skill is much more of a factor in Cadesport than it is in other platforms. It also makes Cadesport a lot more fun to watch. You're going to see some crashes today, almost guaranteed. What happens when you get excited and your heart rate's at 180 and your adrenaline's pumping, it's very easy to overcook a corner, and that will change the race. So as an example, I don't know if Tim's in today. Tim is in today. Tim Fulford is in. Fantastic history with regards to CVR World Cup, but he's having to learn to corner. And so it has changed his results over the last week. And I suspect, knowing Tim, who's a very powerful rider, he's also coming up on the skills set, and I would recommend that everybody watches out for Tim today. We've got a lot of other riders in today. It's quite a full field, and I'll try and highlight a number of those as we go here. Here we're showing Tim in his Cycling Hub kit. I really like that kit. It's really enjoyable. So here we go. We're at the start. You'll notice everybody's transparent, and for the first 10 seconds, we put everyone on the line, so everybody has the same ability from the starting position. And then for 10 seconds, everybody remains transparent, which means you can move through them in the game. And we come to our very first corner, and this corner will probably catch some people out, but as I said, Tim's already up to the skill level. Now we've got Erhan out of Turkey, and he's right there on the front. And hopefully these guys don't overcook any of these corners early on. We've got Luca from Italy. We've got Mark from Canada. Mark normally does commentating for us, but he loves to ride, and so I'm filling in for him today as well. So looks like we've got a little bit of a... Oh, boy, that was a difficult thing. One of the things that can catch you out on those corners is if you slide into somebody, you will crash a little bit early. Looks like Tim may have gone down there as well. And so as you can see, Mark and Luca and now Pedro have gotten away strictly on a skill set. Erhan's not going to have any of that. He says, I'm going to get back on, and you can see him putting out 1,000 equalized watts. Now, what does that mean? 421 equalized watts is FTP. So that's sort of the same for everybody. So if you see someone going at 421 watts, that's sort of the max that they can maintain. Oh, and Mark was doing so well, but he went down in that corner. So that definitely hurt him there. And so he'll lose out in the lead. But again, as I said, that adrenaline starts cooking. And you know what speed you should be going through the corner, but you just go a little bit hard. And that changes everything. Okay, now we've got Luca 5 seconds off the front. Luca is really learning the game. When Luca came into the game, a little bit more crashing, as everybody will experience because they're used to some of the other platforms where you don't have to worry about this. But as you can see, this skill level that Luca has developed means a huge advantage in the game. Now, Luca's also putting out over 500 watts, equalized watts there, so definitely over FTP. Can't maintain that for maybe more than about 10 minutes at the over 500 threshold. Again, 421 watts is your FTP, and that's sort of the power that you could maintain for like 20 minutes to an hour. And so as you see people going over 421 watts, what you're seeing is that they're going to, oh, and here we've got a power up. Tim, great use of a power up here. So this is fantastic. Now, if he can maintain this corner caper, which means he will not slide out in the corners, he doesn't have to worry about his corner speed. And the question is, can he maintain it all the way through this next corner? Did he get through there enough? Oh, and he does. So just as it runs out. So fantastic timing by Tim. So great tactical advantage. And you see Luca sliding out there. And what happens is somebody passes you, that adrenaline starts to flow, and you want to hold on to that wheel, and so you start pedaling really hard, and then bam, that corner takes you out, and everything changes. So Tim now has a huge lead, 12 seconds off the front. Pedro is chasing. Luca is going to be back and chase together. We'll see if Mark can make his way back. Again, some big wattages being output here. Now you'll notice that Tim is sort of running in, and we see Mark here, and he looks like maybe he's under a little bit of stress. Maybe we could get Mark to loosen his shoulders a little bit. Relax, Mark. And so you save a little bit of that energy. You can lose a lot of energy through your shoulders by tensing up. So one of the things that we try and get riders to do is tense up. Oh, and Mark, I'm talking too much. He's too concentrating on relaxing his shoulders there. You can see that Mark is turning his handlebars there. You might wonder what that's all about. You steer in Cadesport. He's using the companion app. You can also brake. You can see him braking there right now. Oh, and that was very close. So that was sort of max speed through that corner. Oh, and that time braking a little bit too late. And you really want to sort of finish your braking before the corner so that you're off the brake and you're sort of coasting through the corner. That'll give you sort of maximum speed through the corner. And here we've got Erhan. We've got to get him to brake a little bit earlier as well. and you can see a little bit of frustration with that. Now maybe him and Mark can work together and get back as they're back a little bit further in the pack now. They're about 20 seconds off the lead. Now you might start to think, okay, Tim's got this in hand, but Tim has used his power-ups, one set of his power-ups, or at least one of his power-ups, his corner caper. We have 4 power-ups today. You have 2 corner capers, which again, you can go through the corners as fast as you like if you have the corner caper on. And then we also have power plant, which gives you a 200 equalized watt boost, so 200 more watts than whatever you're putting out at that particular point in time. And I think Tim has saved some of those in reserves. Oh, and as I mentioned, the power up, Tim is using that for us, and so he's showing about 800 equalized watts, so he's probably doing about 600 himself. And then the power plant is doing it, and he's doing this on the climb. And Tim really knows the game, and he really understands the tactics, and you can sort of see that coming to the fore here. Now Pedro's trying to close it down, but Tim here is really sort of staying with the power, and I like this. He's used his power-ups early, and now he's using his stamina and his power to sort of keep everybody else more than 1 or 2 power-ups away. So what he's doing is, even if somebody else uses a power-up like Luca is here, they won't get all the way back to Tim in one go. It'll take quite a bit longer than that. Now you see Tim is sort of settling in sort of in that 420, 450 watt area, which is just a little bit above his FTP. Again, it looks like he looks to be extending that gap, but what he's also doing is now saving some energy. This is the kind of effort that Tim could maintain for the next 6 kilometers, a little bit less than 6 kilometers, like 5.5 kilometers, pretty easily. And so now what he's going to do is he's going to put pressure on everybody else to go over that FTP level and really sort of put themselves into the hurt locker. And then what he's also going to be doing, again, let me mention those corners. He's also going to be pressuring people while he's sort of taking it easy through the corners, and he's not going to be cooking them. You know, he's going to, like there you saw him coasting into that particular corner. He's going to take the corners pretty easy. Everybody else has got to sort of go full tilt through the corners, and there's a lot of risk involved in that. So you want to go through that corner to try and gain some time on Tim, but he's kind of baiting you, because as you do that, all you got to do is overcook it a little bit, or you try and accelerate out of the corner too quickly, and wham, all the gains that you've made for that power, let's say you're in the 500 watt range to sort of gain on him, is just going to be immediately taken away. So Tim's out front, and what we have is Luca and Pedro sort of in the back here. Ooh, Mark's really cooking it into this corner. And is he going a little too fast? Yep. And again, that's just one of those areas where you get excited. And probably Erhan was wishing Mark wouldn't crash there so that they could work together. And so one of the things that you want to do is sort of, especially when you're chasing someone like Tim, we need to form a little bit of a pack and sort of maintain some calmness through the corners, and then we can sort of rotate at the front. So Cadesport, fantastic physics in Cadesport. So what you can do is a pace line like you do in real life, and the person on the front is definitely working the hardest, and then the person at the back is definitely getting a rest. So very akin to real life, and we would want to see that start to form with the various riders who are going to chase Tim. As you can see, Tim is 20 seconds up now, and Tim is really holding quite a wattage. He's still up at the 500, so he's now more than a couple of power-ups, I would say, away from everybody. And so even as everybody else tries to use their power-ups, it's going to be hard to bring a rider of Tim's quality back. So Tim looks to be walking away with this one. But Luca and Pedro, it looks like it's Portugal taking on Italy in this particular race. And it looks to me like these two riders, again, have upped their skill levels, and so they've separated themselves by another 20 seconds from the people who are struggling a little bit more. And we've got Luca. I mentioned Italy, and Luca's going to show us how you can take these corners. Now, there's a whole bunch of risk here, because where is this power-up going to run out? Is he going to make it through the next corners, or is he going to break? Because this is a very difficult corner. Wow, and he's really holding on to this for a long time. Oh, fantastic. Okay, so Luca knew it was going to die. He braked hard while he still had the corner caper on, and you can brake hard while you have the corner caper on, and he got down to speed, then he let off the brake, and then the corner caper came out. Now, Pedro says Portugal's got some tricks too, and I'm going to use a combination of power-ups here. He's using both the power plant, which gives him 200 extra watts, and he's using the corner caper, and he got through all the turns. And so maybe that was a little bit better usage. It was interesting to see those two tactics played out. But now Pedro has an additional 5 seconds. So I would say probably tactically, Pedro was a little bit more savvy there in his use of those power-ups. But I liked how both of them used them. Now, we could say that, but Luca probably still has a power plant at his disposal, and so he probably can bring back that 5 seconds. So maybe it was even Steven on the tactics there. It'll take us a little while to see that and figure it out. We're about halfway through the race. Now, what I have noticed is Pedro. Oh, man, that really hurts, because Pedro was. Oh, and Luca does the same thing. And all I was going to say, Pedro was really bringing down the time to Tim with that power-up. He was sort of within striking distance of Tim. And then you can kind of see what happens here with the riders. They sense that they're close, and then it's really hard to maintain your control in the corners. And I can tell you this because I rode the races this week, and I'd like to tell you that I didn't crash. But once you get sort of in this mode of chasing, and you see Luca do it there, it's really hard to keep yourself calm through the corners because you want to make up the time. You know you can make up the time there, and you just tend to overcook it. And so that, like I said, Pedro was very close to getting back to Tim. It was going to put Tim under some pressure. Then one wreck, and then Tim can kind of just take it easy. You see Tim sort of at the below threshold now. Feels very good, being more than about 25 seconds up. So he'll probably coast in. And what Tim is probably doing now is he's managing another unique feature of Cadesport, which is playlists. So we saw a little bit earlier on the graphic. I didn't really talk about it too much then, but we have 3 races today. And so they are back-to-back races. So first we do Going to the Sun Road Smashed. Then I think we do Lakeview Lanes, which is a technical course as well. And then the last one we'll do is sort of a sci-fi course that's really got these long straights that are great for drafting and those sorts of things as well. And so what you need to do is you need to manage how you're going to do in each of those events. So Tim here will sort of back off a little bit and save something up for the next races, because if I know Tim is looking for the hat trick today, and it certainly looks like he's out here to show one, that he is a champion of CVR World Cup, but he's also getting the skills down, and he certainly looks to have done that with almost a 30-second lead at this point. Now we see Erhan here using his power-ups as he's doing the climb, and he's trying to catch on to Luca, who's only 12 seconds up. Now what you can see is that he's also in the hurt locker. If we look at him, he's at about 175 equalized heart rates, beats per minute. So he's got a little bit to give, but he's also got to save for those other races that I was talking about. So now he has to think about, do I try and get to the podium in this one and really put myself into the red, or do I save something up and just do better in the next race, pay a little bit more attention to the technical? What we say in Cadesport is you got to go slow to go fast, and Tim is an example of that here. He's going to go through these corners, and he's just going to take them easy. And you can gain so much time through the corners, as we've seen, that makes a huge difference. And so you just learn to sort of relax on the corners, and really by going slower, you end up going quite a bit faster. Now the other thing about that is, if you're coasting through the corners, you're actually saving quite a bit of energy as well. So not only are you going faster because you're not crashing, but you're also being able to recover. So on some of the other platforms, it's just sort of pedal 100% of the time. On Cadesport, it's much more like outdoors, because you're going to coast through corners, you're going to coast downhill, all of those types of things. Now we've got Portugal v Italy on between these two racers, Pedro and Luca, and I'm very interested to see where these guys are going to end up at the end, because they've been in a pitched battle the entire time. These are very fun, and we'll look also, looks like hopefully Mark's going to go calm through the corners this next time, and it looks like Erhan is sort of settling into, let's hold 4th position for this race and save up a little bit for the next race. And we see both Mark and Erhan here, and you can kind of see Erhan's wiping off, sort of taking it easy, and he'll go through the corners now. And the interesting thing is if you actually monitor your lap times, what I would recommend to all the riders, you'll be surprised at how much faster you go if you just take the corners easy. Typically easily said, hard to do in any given race. And we've got Mark here, in a Canadian-like jersey, and that's fun to see as well. So, okay, so we're here on Pedro and Luca, And again, it's just a pitched battle. Now, I have to feel a little bit. We've talked a lot about Tim, so I think he's gotten a lot of the love as well. But this strikes me as kind of an F1 race. It's like Max Verstappen is out front. We're not even going to pay much attention to him. So he's so far in the lead that we're going to pay attention to some of these 1v1 battles that might be a little bit more interesting to watch. And we see Luca here. Ooh, that was a little bit aggressive, I think, because he was really accelerating in that corner, and that can catch you out. So one of the things that people look at this, Tim's like, I'm so far ahead and I still have power-ups. I'm just good, I think is what he's echoing in his voice right now at the moment. I suspect that the next race is going to be a little bit more challenging for Tim, although if he shows the same sort of skill through the corners, he might walk away with that one as well. Really, we'll see if the other riders can sort of take it easy on the corners in the next one and sort of get through. Now we've got Luca and Pedro both using power-ups at this point, not really putting the power all the way down, but what we see here is that Luca gets a little bit of a gap, but Pedro's right there. So these two riders are really neck and neck as well. And we sort of see Mark and Erhan, sort of the chase group, a little bit, further back. Now we've got Vanessa out on course. I think we've got some other riders from Turkey on course as well. I think the name is Sybil, if I'm remembering correctly. So Erhan's got a lot of people coming in from Turkey, and we really appreciate that as well. Okay, so Pedro says, Luca says, here we go. Oh, hard braking, good braking. Oh boy, I mean, I sit on the edge of my seat as I see those guys go through the corners because we've seen them crash a lot, and a crash here would certainly hurt you. So let's see. Oh, and boy, I think I might have jinxed Luca. So Luca's going to have to get up now. Oh, Pedro. Boy, so Pedro's given back the advantage there. And so we sort of saw what looked like probably would be the defining break between these two due to the wreck. But again, sometimes you see that and you get excited. You're like, okay, I've got this. I've just got to now extend my lead. And you do that a little bit early and you crash in the corner. So one of the things about the corners and watching Cadesport is you gotta sit on your seat, like you just saw it there. Gotta kind of sit on your seat the whole time, and you got to be nervous for these riders as they're going through these corners. Now it looks to me like, and then what you'll see is that sort of behavior. So Luke is now probably going a little slow through the corners, which I get because once you've crashed and your heart rate's at 180 or 190 equalized speeds, we equalize to 200, so you don't know what the person's actual heart rate is, but you do know what percentage, if you will, of their overall heart rate that they're at. Now you see Luca gets back on here, but you can see that Luca's heart rate is now at like 195. I'm not sure what Pedro's is because he's not wearing his heart rate, which is okay in the preview, but as we get into CVR World Cup proper, everybody does need to have a heart rate. Okay, Tim's just showing off now, everybody. I think he's using his power-ups now to get TV time on the front for him and for Cycling Hub, and he's just killing this race. He's killing this race so much. This is another tactic. Not only can he rest up a little bit on his way to the finish as he goes down the final hills, and he's only got 0.7 of a kilometer to go, but he's going to finish almost a minute earlier than everybody else. So while everybody else is having to fight the battles, like Luca and Pedro here, he's going to get a minute rest in the next event because he's just going to be there a minute early. So he's going to be hard to beat in the next race. Okay, so Luca looks to have put in an advantage on Pedro. Maybe we can get Pedro's view, see how far back Pedro is. So Pedro has lost contact. I can't see Luca. So Luca's a whole 9 seconds up. So I'm not sure what happened, but probably a crash that I missed there, and maybe some power-up usage. But it looks like Luca, even though there was that mistake where he crashed ahead of Pedro, looks like he had some tricks in the bag. congrats to Tim here. We're going to watch him cross the finish line. He'll raise his arms in celebration. We have some fun with emotes in Cadesport, another difference of the game itself. Now, here's the interesting part. These other riders, as I said, have to maintain their power while right now Tim is resting. He's moved on to the next race in the playlist, and he's in warm-up there. Warm-up will go for about 3 minutes. So he'll get a full 3-minute rest. And on the other hand, Luca and Pedro and Erhan and Mark, they'll get much less of a rest. Now, they could decide to leave this race early and go to the next race and get as much rest, but then they wouldn't score any points in this race. Now, in preview, we're not really doing playlist points. I'll kind of do it on the fly for you, kind of tell you where people sit, but that will be more formal in the next CVR World Cup League, where you will get scored each event, or what we call activity, and then you get a cumulative score, and we show you that as you go through. So we get to see Erhan coming across the line, and this is actually, I think, in 4th position. Looks like he's going to finish first here, but the other 3 have already moved on to the next. Oh, we've got Kay, who's now gotten in front of Mark, and it looks like Kay wants to take that 5th space. And some people would call that a podium. I'm a little bit old school, so for me it's the top 3, but many people have extended that to the top 5. So Kay may be working across for what I will call sort of a new generation podium here, just ahead of Mark, and will finish 5th. Kay is a regular rider on Cadesport and a regular rider of CVR World Cup. She rides with her husband, Homer, on the CCC team. Peter Castro also rides with them. Peter had a good day and took a race win on Thursday. So you can catch us on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays to just sort of see the action. And now we see that Kay was going to finish there in 5th position, so congrats to her. And then we'll move on to the next race, which will be Lakeview Lanes. This is a more technical course than going to the Sun Road Smashed, although it may not feel that much different. Now, what the difference, though, is Lakeview Lanes, the corners are kind of always there. So as in going to the Sun Road Smashed, whereas you would have sort of long stretches where you don't have to worry about the corners, and then suddenly you have to worry about the corners, Lakeview Lanes, you kind of always have to worry about the corners. And so, generally speaking, I think people are a little bit better at taking the corners on Lakeview Lanes because it's just a constant sort of thought. 5 seconds to the start here. Again, everybody is transparent, and they will be for the first 10 seconds of the race. And this allows you to sort of set your race position. Now, what you have to be careful is there's a corner right off the start, so you can't just like come out at 1,200 equalized watts because all you'll do is crash in the first corner, which if you watch F1 or some of the other race car things, as they say, you can't win it in the first corner, but you can lose it in the first corner. Ooh, Luca gets right in there. You've got obstacles on this course as well, so you have to avoid the obstacles. And Luca got right in there before that happened. Now, we've got Luca, Tim Fulford, Pedro, Erhan, and we've got Kay and Chase. We've also got Mark out there. And we'll see if Mark can kind of just smooth it through the corners. And you see Kay is chasing here as well. Oh, and Kay just overcooks it a little bit. Boy, that can be frustrating. But up at the front, we've got Tim, I think, is back out in the lead. And we're back here with Sybil from Turkey. I mentioned her earlier. Okay, so we've got Tim off the front here. Maybe we can get Erhan's and Pedro's view so we can see the chase up. Yep, they're right close. And boy, this is where maintaining control through the corners, and Tim is showing us an example of that. We've got Mark coming back as well. You just really have to maintain that corner speed, and you can pump it up here and you can see that Aaron's doing that. And then you just got to hit the brakes and then let off the brakes before the corner, and you will gain a lot of time. Now, Tim's going to be trying to do the same thing, and Tim can take it a little bit easier. He can take a little bit less risk, and these others have to take the risk now through the corners, because in Lakeview Lanes, you mostly have to make it up through the corners. Now, there's a couple of long straights. There's a big long straight. Here's one of them. There's another one, and then there's a really long one before the finish line, but then there's a corner right before the finish line. So it's really easy to overcook that and then get into it. Now, what we see here is Tim is cruising here at 147 equalized heart rate. So he's really using the corners to recover, and he'll most likely be able to make a really big effort on these long straights and put more of a gap into people. Oh! So a couple of things happened there. Pedro, I think, slid out into that barrier, so he probably started accelerating a little bit earlier. If there wasn't a barrier there, he might have made it through. But in this case, he skidded into the barrier, and that took him out. And so that sets Tim up pretty well. He's got a 5-second lead. Now, Erhan is doing quite well in the chase. Oh, and Erhan's coming back. So Erhan's putting huge power in as well. And maybe... Let me just check something real quick. I saw one rider move through another rider. So I think we may have a server issue. Checking. That's usually what that means. And so I think what we're seeing here is there's been a fault in the system, and so people are moving through each other. That's usually a key indication that could be happening. So I'm going to just sort of see if I can get a sense of that as we go as well. Can I get a screen with a time gap? Okay, so maybe what I was seeing was a little bit different in terms of what's happening. Let me just see. Yeah, so I'm getting sort of different reports. Sorry about that, as I'm a little distracted with trying to understand what is happening, but it looks like the leaderboard isn't updating, and it looks like some people are able to go through corners faster than I would expect. So give me a moment. So I think we might want to sort of switch our views, I would think, to a holding screen while we figure out what's going on. Give us a few moments and we'll be back shortly.